So, topic of the day. So today is another one that was prompted. It's the importance of staying strong for the next generation. And so this is actually another one that I kind of struggled to answer. And so I went to scripture on this one. And so the scripture I could find that seems the most relevant to me is actually Romans 14 and 13. And that scripture is, "So then, let us stop judging one another. Instead, you should decide. So then, let us stop judging one another. Instead, you should decide never to do anything that would make another stumble or fall into sin." And so, the context of this scripture is that it was speaking on actually not necessarily being strong, but just people having different convictions, and there being people who are strong in the faith and then others who are weak in the faith. And so I thought that was relevant because if we're speaking about the next generation, I'm thinking we're talking about the youth and the younger generation. And I would consider them, and this is not always, but I will consider them quote unquote weak in the faith. And when I say weak in the faith, I mean they are susceptible to what other people can do, and it will affect their own walk. And so within that scripture, it's don't do anything that would make another stumble or fall into sin. And so I really want to key into that stumble and fall because generally, if you're walking a path and you're in the woods, the dangerousness of that path or the difficulty level of that path is directly correlated with how strong you are as a hiker or a walker. So you can have two people on the same exact path, but they experience that path completely differently. And so we have to be very careful when you're walking a path that you're not making it even more difficult for the people walking behind you, and understanding that they could also be weaker than you. So you're like, oh, that's easy. That they wouldn't trip over me doing something like this. But in reality, they are susceptible to wavering in their faith based on how you maneuver through the world. So with that being said, we should make sure that whatever we're doing, it's out of love. And you can't really say you love someone if you're doing something that will cause them to feel like you've broken some sacred law, even though it may not necessarily be wrong. You want to make sure you're, doing things out of love and helping people progress. And so I guess that's the best way I can answer that. It's not necessarily about staying strong because there's a lot of scripture around we as human beings aren't necessarily strong, but we're all made more perfect with Christ. So I know I kind of went around to try to answer that question, but I think it just comes down to we need to make sure that our actions are edifying and they uplift the people around us. That's all I got. All right, take care.